live streaming record.
Okay, so we believe that, quite simply, it's right for government to take aggressive action to prevent the breakdown of communities by gentrification, which has been defined by the motion. We believe it's wrong for rich areas to gentrify poorer areas on practical levels, which I will go on to explain because they do not benefit the right people that we care about most on this motion, and also on moral grounds about who society should care most about in these situations. Eleanor will go on to tell why it's important to maintain these communities' voices and why this is particularly important, and she'll also discuss religious groups within this, and why we believe these things are all threatened by gentrification. So firstly, what is gentrification? Somewhat laid out by the motion, largely in terms of richer kind of middle-class areas and people moving into traditionally working class areas. There are many examples I'm sure you will know of. For me, I probably pick Brixton in London, for example, increasingly gentrified area, and I'm going to kind of set out how this works and how it kind of causes issues. So firstly, I'm going to talk about the practical effects of this, and this is why this is such a really core topic and core important point for this debate, and why this ultimately wins the debate. Ultimately, opposition might try and tell you that there's a wonderful world of gentrification, which is really, really good, and we would love for this world to exist, but the fact is it doesn't, right? So the world, ultimately, the people we care most about see very little benefits of gentrification, as I'm going to lay out. So the characterization of the kind of thing that happens under gentrification is that wealthy money kind of goes in and often buys things like second homes in poorer, in like less rich areas, places like Brixton, kind of rise of Art Deco flats, etc. And this is really, really, really harmful. So I'm going to kind of lay out the impacts of this. The daily cost of living for people who live in these areas before gentrification begins to happen goes massively up, especially in cities. As people are forced out wider and wider. In Brixton, for example, people are forced out to Lewisham, further out areas of London, and then kind of removes them from the communities, which, as Eleanor will discuss, will bring massive psychological harms, and people are kind of forced out of these areas. However, it brings key harms in terms of the cost of living. If you're pushed out of town, you have further to travel to get to your place of work, etc. And this therefore costs more money, and prices can go up for lots and lots of people. And because these people are on, I'll take you in 30 seconds, and because these people are on lower salaries in general, it's a higher proportion, these people kind of end up suffering more, the cost of living goes up, and therefore kind of people that we care most about, people who've been living in these areas to begin with, and as I'll go on to discuss, people that society has a moral obligation to support and look after, end up suffering most under a world in which gentrification happens, which you might hear about.
Prices going up is a very serious issue, but could you please explain why it happens?
Okay, right, fine. It's sort of say, the people in areas like Brixton are more often people who are renting houses and who have mortgages to pay off. When wealthy kind of money and people can move into more working class areas like Brixton, for example, the prices on the properties go up, rent goes up massively, so people end up getting rents out. Also, the kind of shops that begin to open are often catered to a more wealthy clientele. So people who try and live in, who try to continue to live in these areas, face a situation in which even ordinary shops are pricing goods at a much higher rate. You get less kind of affordable shops and more kind of luxury shops. There was a case of somewhere in London, I forget where, a cereal bar opening, and it was a kind of seen as like the high point of gentrification because it was ridiculously expensive, and ordinary people in that area couldn't go to and interact with it, and therefore were suffering because the shops in that area were pricing them out, and their cost of living was extortionate. So people who struggle on to try and stay in these areas face increased food costs, whilst the people who are forced out of these areas, face increased travel costs, and therefore are basically quite harmed by gentrification as an issue because they end up having less disposable income. It needs to keep but in these areas to begin with, we believe, as I'm about to tell you, that we have a moral obligation in society which we accept to look after people who are more vulnerable. So we are in most functioning democracies, I think, you have some form of welfare state or some form of government support for less well-off people. It's a widely accepted fact, but we have a responsibility to look after people in society for whatever reasons, reasons of discrimination, reasons of poor education in certain areas, less access to chance in life. So effectively, what gentrification does is it benefits middle-class people in quite a good way, because it increases artsy, cool areas to live, etc. No, I'm sorry, I'm running out of time. I want to finish my point. So it benefits middle-class people in quite a major way, but it can harm these less well-off people, as I told you, because of the practical cost of living, which is basically what matters most to these people, right? Because they, obviously, everybody cares a great deal. There's quite big pressure on your mind, causes quite a lot of psychological stress. Am I going to be able to pay my rent this week? Am I going to be able to afford enough food for my family? So it causes major, major harm to these people that we care about most. And we acknowledge that we're in a society with welfare state, etc., but we should be caring about these people most. We have a moral obligation to look after people who are less well-off in society, and gentrification is something that directly harms these people. Therefore, as the government, we think that we should be taking action to protect less well-off communities from the harms that gentrification causes, as I've described. So the kind of supposed benefits of it really actually end up causing harm. So the kind of shops, the kind of jobs that open in newly gentrified areas tend to cater to quite skilled work, etc. And therefore, this is really, really harmful to people with less skills for the new types of jobs that are opening. So jobs, for example, is not a benefit of gentrification. They're the wrong kind of jobs, and they cater to not the kind of people that we care about most in this day. And also rents and transport costs for people who are priced out the area goes up, while the people who remain within the area face high cost of living. So we therefore end up harming the people that we care most about into this day. And Elliot and Eleanor will go on to describe how this damages communities and not their voice. Very proud to support government propositions to gentrification. Thank you.
Okay, I can speak very much in the speech, and I'll call on Bennett to open.
Thank you very much. We as the opposition team believe that gentrification has a lot of chances, especially to those people who are opening government cares about. And secondly, that those policies preventing it, which unfortunately we never talked about, won't work anyway, so there's no sense in supporting them. So first, some points of rebuttal. So you say, okay, people buying their second homes and stuff, and we don't believe this. It's like people investing there because they see, okay, this is like a growing area, and we can see the development here, so maybe we can, when we invest, we get more money out of it. So their intent is to make some economic profits, open shops, etc., create jobs, and not just have a second living home there usually. And then the other point about when you have the ethnicity point in the community, we see if you're worst case, you say, is then okay, you move to a little bit more far away. So you say, okay, then you have to travel more and have more expenses. So first of all, we say we feel like spreading wealth in the city, with those areas spreading out to more and more stuff. You have jobs also nearer to you, because the jobs are moving with the gentrification, because there's where the wealth is, so there's where the jobs are. So the jobs are also spreading out, so you might get A, more jobs, and B, they are also getting closer to you. So this is not the actual problem. So moving on to what's then the point. So first of all, unfortunately, you never said which kind of policies you support, so we can assume kind of all. So for example, if you prohibit it, we say it's going to create a big backlash there for the people. saying, okay, yeah, it's the poor like preventing us to like move somewhere. It's not gonna work because you can't say, okay, this is like the one who's allowed to live there. This is not our which criteria. You say, okay, if you like being like have this and this religion, which is like more common there than you're allowed there, so really create an area where it's only allowed to live for poor people or for like certain minorities. So actually, what you're going to do is you group them out even more instead of like enabling them to have access and to diversity mixture with the developing status. So going on to the actual points and the benefits. So the main point of gentrification is that we have like some economic development here. So this is especially important for people who have not that much income before. And why is that? So first of all, if you like go there as an investor, you think, okay, I'm allocating my resources here towards this area because it might be getting more and more interesting. Then you see, okay, there might be some potential benefits to like open a shop here, for example. Then you open, like, for example, maybe it's even a jewelry shop, but you need salesmen, so you don't need a high qualification for do this job to sell jewelry. So this is like enabling people to get in touch with like a better job, to get in touch with people who are well educated, to have like more chances, thank you, to maybe go on then with a better job in the next step, or to get like opening a school up, which is like getting more money because it's like wealthier people living there, and like government unfortunately sometimes cares more about schools in better areas, so we have like better education there, we have like less poverty cycles there, we have less crime there because of like money goes there, maybe they will also send more police there because those of people want to protect the poverty, so we will actually tackle all those problems which are usually common in those areas by this development. Note that this development is an ongoing process. It's not like from one day to the other everybody has to move out. It's like, okay, you have like those benefits a little bit here, and then the rents are going a little bit up there. But thinking while this process is ongoing, people will benefit from the money coming in, from the education coming in. It's not like you're immediately like moved out. The second point is what's going to happen. So in the worst case, there are some people who might like, okay, maybe we'll sell, for example, the home I've lived in, but then you also have the benefits. It's like you're not forced to sell your home, but you get a lot of money, and this is why people are then moving out, because they get a lot more money for their home than was actually worth, for example. By this, they're able to build up, for example, a new shop, a new company, whatever, so they can use this money to actually educate, build up something they want to, or at least have like a bigger home or whatever they like, so they benefit, or even those people there. In the other cases, where you're actually going to move. So if you like have some ethnicities or religion, like maybe living there, you don't randomly move somewhere else, the community will be completely destroyed, which is like maybe your second point going to be. No, what you're going to do is you will still want to live with your friends, with your family and stuff. So you move to another area which is like similar to the one you have been lived before, where you still have like, for example, a certain religious community, and still have the voices of the people there where you can integrate. You're not moving randomly to some other place. So we see there's like no real damage for those people. It might be that the area is changing, but for the people it's not bad at all. Yeah.
If a new company is created in the area where a Muslim immigrant lives in London, what is the possibility that an immigrant will get a job in such company created by rich people?
Well, first of all, it's higher than if there's no company at all, which is like obvious. Secondly, it's if you like living there, when it's just like selling something, you also can get a job as a Muslim immigrant because you don't like have a high wage, for example. So there are benefits and reasons why people like hiring lower paid jobs, which is actually what we want to, because in this development process we get the resources there, and thus enabling those people to actually get some kind of job. So continue what's going to happen with the area. So as I told you, they might maybe move, but they won't be destroyed. So maybe it won't be the next, will be the next suburb where you have the same point, but then it's just like before that you have like, okay, next to your area you have the more wealthy, where you have more jobs, the distance is the same, your community is the same, but you earn a lot of money, for example, because you sell your house, or you have a new job because in the area where you live in, you have this point. So last point, why is the government the wrong actor here? And this is like sadly never said by the government actually should do something. So we say, first of all, it's not going to work just by like, for example, putting some quota or some line, okay, you can't work here, live after this line, because it's like fundamental that you have like free movement in our society and say, okay, everybody can live where he or she wants to, everybody can live and like work where he or she wants to, which like Martin will expand on. Secondly, it will create a lot of backlash. So like the more wealthy people will say, okay, yeah, this is like a bad area, we aren't even allowed to move there, we will separate this even more, which will like make policies less likely to actually help the actual problem, which is poverty, and not like wealthy people buying, going to poor areas, which makes them even worse for the poor people, which we are concerned about, because we have the backlash between wealthy people, and for all those reasons, please support opposition. Thank you.
And then the speaker for that speech now called on Alana to continue the case of scholarship.
A load rebuttal followed by why strong government intervention is needed to stop this gentrification, and then hopefully time to do a point on why this is actually really bad for society. So, rebuttal. The idea of second homes. Right, so second homes are going to happen. It's a growing area, that's why people are attracted. For example, in England, you have a seaside town called Margate. Used to be very down, used to be very dumpy, but lots of people from London started commuting there, buying second homes for the weekend. The area still hasn't really improved, but there's now a huge split between the nice wealthy people in one area and the poorer people in another. I'll point about divisions in society, I'll get on to later. The idea of, right, so people are going to have to travel more for jobs and gentrification. So the thing is that travel prices increase, or you have people with the big offices and big companies in one area, and in order to get these jobs, these people now have to go and travel to get them. The thing is, many of the people who are in the poorer areas, where these areas are before they become gentrified, they can't genuinely afford this money to get there. They need local jobs which they can walk to. This is why so many people in poor jobs are cleaners at local schools, are lunchtime people helping on the playground, because they don't have the money to physically travel to the area. This is something that, like making jobs a bit further away, creating new industries, these people can't get there, right? So it completely defeats the purpose. The idea of less of a poverty cycle. Actually, the poverty cycle gets worse, because these people lose their political voice. In these communities, they are more likely to be left-wing, they are more likely to vote as a whole, they are more likely to look for the people who are going to help them make their area better. For example, go to someone more left-wing who perhaps is willing to offer more help with healthcare, who is more likely to actually say, hey, we want to improve the schools for you because we realise that these schools are bad. The reason that it's bad gentrification happens is because you bring in a whole load of richer people who therefore upset the balance. So the needs of the poorest in society, the people we should be listening to, they get completely ignored in return for the richer people in society, the people who've now come here. This means actually people lose out because now their concerns aren't heard. Because now the price of living is rising, as Joe has already illustrated to you, because more middle-class shops open, more middle-class cabins that these people can't even really afford to go to, they simply become trapped in this cycle of poverty. Because now there's no one to actually listen to their voices are actively blocked out. And we think this is a major harm, because unless you have a political voice, how are you ever going to get change in your community? How are you ever going to better your life? Okay, so why is strong government intervention needed, and why is there a moral obligation of government to help us? So, strong government intervention is needed because of the harm it does to the people. Communities. Right, so the government's job is to protect people, to make people feel like they are part of the country, feel like they have a place. At the point where people are able to come into another community and they're able to buy houses and make people feel as if they no longer are able to live in their area, this is the point where people now feel they do not belong. At the point people feel they do not belong, they are more likely to look for other places to go. They become more vulnerable. They look for more extreme, they might either choose to leave the area because they feel so uncomfortable with the new dynamic that's around them. They might even look on the extreme to, they'll be more, if they don't feel like they're part of the home, you might even see that they try to use extremism and so on. So, because they feel that their area is no longer for them. They feel like it's being overtaken. At the point where you lose a sense of community, you make people feel like as if they feel like they don't belong. They are more vulnerable to attack. They are more vulnerable to feel that, okay, this isn't my home anymore. The reason this is important is because government wants to have a united country. They want people to feel as if this is a safe place for them to live. At the point where they feel that their community, where they're probably mostly, like poorer people are more likely in general to feel like they need this sense of community because they feel that they are more, because they have a greater chance of being ostracised from society, because they're not able to participate fully because of lack of jobs, because of lack of healthcare, and because they have to buy healthcare. They need these areas. At the point where gentrification happens, and you bring in people who who are supposedly going to help the economy, is if they do not do it for the sake of these people. The reason people move to these places to gentrify is because they realise they can capitalise on empty buildings. They realise they can capitalise on it and bring the area up for them. They are not doing it for the people who live in these areas completely. At the point that the area where the person lives is compromised, that person can no longer live there. If the house prices start rising, if the cost of travel starts increasing, this person, who is the original person who lives here, who sees this community as their home, they are no longer feeling like they can be in this area. This then forces them out. Now, this is they have to move to another area, which also, if we implement this policy of gentrification, probably means that that area also people up. At the point that we're trying to increase the society, at the cost of actually harming the people who live there in the first place, making them feel like they no longer have a community, they no longer have a home. The gains that you're supposedly having of economics and nicer area don't actually happen. And these gains don't even help the people who live there in the first place and who are the poorest in society. So the reason we need strong government intervention is because we should care, because government should care about people being happy in a setting, people feeling as if they actually have a place in society. At the point where the government's like, yeah, sure, like, we think you should help us there by going, like, loads of rich people moving in. These people now feel isolated. This is almost a physical isolation, because you're never going to have the rich people moving to this area, living in the same houses as the poor people in society. There's always going to be this distinction. There will be. I think, as you literally said, something about, like, next to your area, you have the more wealthy. This is true. You're going to have two different areas. You have the poor area, and then you have the wealthy area. Just because the wealthy people move there, and maybe the roads get a bit cleaner, doesn't mean that there's actually going to be unity within this community. All there is going to be is two sides. This is the poor area of original homes, with the people who actually need the help, and here's the rich area, the people who moved here, seeing that they have a way to capitalise on what's happened. Okay, so why is this bad? Because people feel displaced, individuals feel displaced. They have a lack of home, they feel vulnerable. The area they've grown up in, because if you're poorer, you are less likely to actually have a chance to move out of your area. But you don't recognise your area. Because you've lost your political voice, your area changes, and you resent the people who have come here and tried to change your community. Because the whole point about these communities, the whole point of some of being poor, is actually there is a sense of community, and there is a sense that like these people need each other because they all understand the situation they're in. As soon as you have people who do not understand what it's like to live in these situations, these people resent people from coming in because they don't understand the issues that are affecting them, like schooling and so on. As soon as you have people coming in with second homes, people coming here, oh, look, I see how my business can work, I see how I can capitalise on this. They're not going to probably offer the jobs to these people because these people won't have the qualifications in order to take the jobs that these rich people are coming in to make in these areas. And it simply seems like they are capitalising on the points that they have. I'm finding in the last few minutes psychological harms. So at the point where you walk out your front door and you feel as if you don't belong, you are less likely to feel stable in your community. You are less likely to feel as if you are happy. And if you are less happy, you are less willing to engage with your community. We believe that gentrification is a huge issue too. Because, so remember that comments like, again, we want loads of rich people to come into this area. These people use the fact that this place is their home. And the moment you don't feel you have a home, you feel completely unstable and as if you shouldn't be in this community. Therefore, strong intervention is needed because the government has a duty to make people feel like this place is their home. By actually forcing other people to come into their home and making it seem like they don't belong there, we lose this integrity.
Yeah, let us begin with that speech. Now I'd like to call upon Martin to continue the case for the opposition.
Madam Speaker, honourable panel, we do have a lot of sympathy for the people that the opening government addressed, and we also do believe that poor people have a hard life and there are a lot of deficiencies in our system that make the life of the poor people hard. However, we do believe that fixing or preventing gentrification by government intervention is the wrong method to fix the problems that we have in society with, for example, poor people, as it is a very biased way, as it's only a point-wise way and only addresses some poor people and is a very biased way, and then we need to fix the problems we have in society with poverty as through other methods, and that this is indeed rather harmful methods than on other grounds. So first of all, rebuttal, like you still say that most is a second home. We believe some people may have a second home there, but it's also a large portion is, for example, middle class people. Someone who studied in Bristol now is getting a job as a low-grade banker somewhere, that is moving to some of the suburbs there, is renting an apartment there. For example, those people, or other families that try to move there, other people that try to get jobs in the city, as for example people coming from university, for example do. Now, what's the problem? Like, we still don't know how exactly we want to do this. For example, one method could be to say, okay, we introduce a quota and say, if you belong to this minority, then you can live there and stay live there, and if you don't belong to the minority, you're not allowed to move there. This is very problematic because it's very hard to say who belongs to that minority and who doesn't. Thus, being half Hispanic still counts. You have to have that registered somewhere, for example. Another method would be to say, okay, nobody is allowed to buy property there, and thus the area just has to stay as it is, but then it is very unflexible. Like, it's hard to, like, if someone is moving out, if someone is moving to another area from this minority group, because that also they can do, of course, then nobody is allowed to move in there. Apartments may stay empty because nobody is allowed to move there. So we're not still clear on how this is actually going to take place and how this is work. So it is very hard to address then the problems with that that comes with that. So you address that as poor people, there's a problem. They have very hard, so that it's hard for them to travel to work. They may lose their community, all that type of things. We believe, yes, you're right on some points, but what you assume is that the world outside of this area where gentrification happens just stays the same. But that is not the case, and that is why flexibility here is, again, one of the key issues. So you just assume that the jobs outside of the area where the people travel to just stay the same, but that is not true. Like in earlier times, in the middle of London, you still had production in those, or in the suburbs of London, you still have factories. This is now not the case because the space can be more efficiently used. People just live there in small apartments, maybe the office buildings where they just need a small space to work, and the factories move outside of the cities. And also, even if there are still jobs then in the middle of the city, for example, you said cleaning. Some people there may be more skyscrapers, and you have a 50-store building where a lot of cleaners may be required. So if poor people have to move outside of the city and can't afford the travel costs, then the skyscraper managers will have big problems to actually get cleaning staff to get there. And the salary may rise again to the point where people can't afford to move inside the city. So we believe that the world outside of these areas is changing, and that's why if we don't allow this area to change with those circumstances, this is going to be problematic. As for example, like I said, it's going to be first of all inefficient. For example, if people can't move in there and the areas can't get the investments they need, if they can't be flexible, for example, if shops are not allowed to move, then it actually address most of maybe the population outside or the people that are actually working there, and similar things. That's the first point. Why do we now believe that this is the wrong problem to fix the deficiencies that we have in our society? Yes, we do have poor people, but we believe if we say, okay, those people can't afford the rent, then we have to talk about, for example, minimum wage. That's all people that are poor, for example, are being addressed. And it's not those people that are lucky enough to live in an area that is now considered to be under gentrification. We want all people to be included in the policies that are given by the government. So we think that, yes, it is a problem for people sometimes to afford the rent somewhere close to them, somewhere close to their job, but just addressing it to people with gentrification is a problem as it deters the situation. No, thank you. So why do we think that on an economic level it's better if we don't interfere in this market and rather, for example, introduce minimum wage rather than doing gentrification? Well, first there's the economic interest of the people themselves. Some people may own a house there and they want to sell even if they are from the minorities and they get that. Or as you said, they rent it and then there's the landlord and the landlord might get more rent. So the landlord gets the rent that he could make and the rent that he is getting is a large gap here, so he is getting less economic benefit here from the gap in the rent it is. Now we have to weigh up and say, okay, we have the poor people here, okay, maybe in some cases, not in all cases, we believe sometimes they may want to move out, or want to sell their property, that they may not be able to do so in their case. No, thank you. That they may not be able to do so in their case. Let's close. You want to ask a question? Otherwise, go ahead.
Yeah, so I've already told you that people tend to be renting and on mortgages. They can't sell their properties in most cases. So that doesn't really work because they're on rent, they're renting, so they can't sell.
Okay, thank you. So in that case, they're renting, then there is a landlord, and like I said, the landlord could make more rent out of that apartment, so there's a gap in there, and he's getting less money of the apartment. So now there is maybe this person that says, okay, I want to pay less rent, and there is a landlord who says, okay, I could be getting more rent, and there is a middle class family that says, I want to move in there, and I could pay more, and I would be willing to pay more rent. Here we still believe we should fix problems in our society, like we said, with minimum wage. But if we accept, first of all, the situation as it is, and say the wealth distribution is as it is, on a principle way, we still do believe that it is wrong for the government to intervene in gentrification. Why is that the case? We still believe that if people, for example, work in the middle of the city and companies are willing to pay the wages there that people need there in order to live there, they have been productive in some way and they're contributing to society through their productivity and they are getting a higher wage there. And for example, the landlord also who bought the place sometime in the past, he also invested there and contributed with his investment to the development of the area. So if we weigh those two things, then we still believe that the one who, in order to be flexible, to say, okay, those persons who are willing to pay the most and where the resource is best allocated, for example, because, I mean, it is the system of capitalism, you may criticize it, but say, okay, the people who owns the most is contributing the most productivity, thank you, to the thing. So on that level, we see that it's more efficient and higher to see the benefit of the people who want to move there rather than the other. And that's please opposed. Thank you very much.
Okay, then, thank you very much for that speech. Now I'd like to call upon Anastasia to present the case for the proposition.
First of all, we as the government side do not take the arguments about giving an apartment for rent or any stuff like this, because first of all, who actually lives in such poor areas? For example, if we take London or New York, we usually look at those suburbs or those districts where usually the immigrants live or people whose parents have immigrated. Those people have created their own local society and trying to reach and achieve any kind of stability in a new place for them, in an expensive place, because for example, London is an expensive city. That's why these people live in poor areas. They don't live in the downtown of London, for example. And we do believe that these people do not have the kind of possibility to have two apartments, to live in one and to give for rent in another one. We do not think that we talk about middle class and we do not take this group of people into account. So today we and secondly, we do believe that even if new companies are created, they still will not provide high-paid jobs for these lot of people in these areas. Because usually, if a company is created in a poor area, it is created exactly in this place because there is a poor manpower in this place. And we do believe that this will not increase the income of these people and will not make these people be on a higher level in the society. We as the government side today want to prove that for us, in order to develop these areas, in order to help these people integrate into the society, we need to use other methods. First of all, because we need to improve the infrastructure in this area by making these people get more money, not by bringing more money from outside, not make just a lot of more money come inside and to work on those people who are already rich enough. Because we know if a company is open in this district, the money will go to that rich person who has created this company, and these people will still get low money as they have done before. So today we want to prove to you a few things. First of all, we want to explain why ruining the stability these people have in this area is crucial for them, and why it will create social tension in society, and especially in these areas. First of all, if these people already live in poor areas, they already struggle to survive in expensive cities, they already struggle to find jobs, because if you're an immigrant and you came and tried to settle down your life here, it's hard for you to find a job and to get any kind of money to maintain your life. So we think that losing jobs for such kinds of people is crucial for them. And we do not take the line of the opposition about moving to other their stability, it stops what they have struggled to gain and struggled to achieve in order to settle down in these areas. We do believe that when rich people will come, will take the homes, will take the job positions, and will create that infrastructure which will not be available for these people, this will create some social tensions. Because these people will understand that right now the government is not orientated on them in this community. The infrastructure develops only for the needs of their high-level class. And thirdly, these people who live in the poor areas, they are more vulnerable to any crimes, to being on the black market, and to doing anything like this if they lose a home or if they lose a job. So we do believe that the security they have been talking about will be improved. Because for us, for the state, there's more priority right now to improve the security, to improve the infrastructure for these people, and to care about the service and the state, not by letting these people otherwise lose their homes. And we believe that there is no problem in making more police in these areas right now. We do not need rich people to come to be orientated on them. And if we improve the security only for rich people, it means we do not have a democracy state, and it's inequality we are talking about today. Yes.
So, madam, the problem is that lots of people, they do not come to poor areas and they take places of those well-paid jobs. So they just go there and they start their new businesses there. So they do not steal jobs from poor people. So they create just new ones.
Yes, thank you. But we are talking about poor areas where live certain minorities, and they have created their local environment. It is more probably for immigrants from Arab states to work in a local shop where he has a boss who has the same religion or the same culture that he has and came from the same country. It is more probable that he will work in the local companies already established by those immigrants, and he will work in any British company, and he does not have those qualifications to work on these kind of positions. Yes.
So, as I've said to you, gentrification is a development process, which is actually what you want, like having the low-paid jobs first, and then like higher-paid jobs, and then the infrastructure.
And we as the government see no problem in making any kind of social programs for people who live in poor areas, to provide scholarships, to make these people go to universities, and to get out of their local area and work in other areas of London, for example. To work as a lawyer, for example, not in any shop and sell vegetables, for example. So we see right now we need to integrate and state these people to kind of get out of their local communities, to get more well-paid jobs in order, and when these people will get more money, will have more income, these areas will be developed by themselves. But we see on the other side now that when the capital will come and investments will come, and these people will just suffer from it because they will lose the possibilities to fulfill their needs, because the shops will be more expensive, because the services will be not available for them anymore, because for example, if the places for the shops are taken for expensive companies and for other companies, it is less probable that people in this area will be able to establish their own local shops and work in them. So we, the government, think that there are all other ways to integrate these people and to make these areas be more developed, than to create an atmosphere for social tensions, because as we have said today, these people are more vulnerable to get bad jobs or to commit crimes or anything like this, and we think that it will not improve any security and will not make these people break this barrier on their social level in cities like London or New York or San Francisco. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for the speech. Now I'd like to call upon Julia to extend the case of the opposition.
ladies and gentlemen, already Madam Chair. So it's really nice to see you over here. So I will start with rebuttal, and I would say that we see on the government side today a great deal of radicalization. They talk to us like 300 businessmen coming at the same time, building up their homes, establishing their companies, stealing all our jobs. That's a lie actually, because they don't come in such amounts, they don't come in such numbers. So we are talking about this situation when one businessman comes, 5 businessmen come, and we don't have this imminent conflict between the local people and businesses there, because we don't have such great numbers of businessmen and wealthy people coming to this place and setting everything they want, setting their rules, setting their homes and so on. And based on that, you talk about ethnicity conflicts when it's bad for you when you work for a person who is of the same nationality as you, who is like the head or director of a local store, a local shop like you. But we are talking about the situation when local production still exists. We don't have the elimination of everything that used to happen in these very towns, in these very cities. So we still have the production that used to be, we still have the shops. Maybe the number of them will be lower, will be less, but we still have a great number of them. So if it's really important for you as a Muslim, for example, to work for a Muslim, not for a person coming from a capital of a country that you don't like, you still will work in a local shop, you still will work for the production you would like. That's the point that we are talking today about. Another thing, if a state in the status quo fails to provide poor people with any jobs at all, why don't we give the businessmen, wealthy people coming to these poor areas, poor villages, give jobs to these people so that they have any kind of job, any kind of money, so that they can gain experience and use their knowledge and education that they, for example, got in a bigger city or in the same city they live. So we don't really see the point in just not letting these people come to this local village, for example, and doing their thing. And our framing is that today we have a big segregation, big division between wealthy people and poor people, because wealthy people live in poor cities or in some areas of big cities. For example, I come from Moscow and we have Rublevka, which is full of so many wealthy and well-off people that don't really know about the problems of what happens in some smaller cities or smaller towns of Russia. They don't really know what's going on in the whole Russia, not in the same country they live. And what our position as opposition in this debate solves the problem of this gap between these people, because we have wealthy people, poor people, and they don't really coordinate with each other. What do we mean? Because when a wealthy person comes to a small village that is quite poor, that has bad kindergartens, bad hospitals, and bad service in general, he comes to a hospital, he comes to a school, he comes to a kindergarten, and understand that the country is at a loose end right now, and that we have to do something, we have to somehow solve the problems. You can answer to that there will be people who come to very expensive hospitals and kindergartens, but there are still those who come to ordinary ones in these local villages, and they see these problems, and most of them would try to solve that. They would come to the local government or just to any government bodies, municipal bodies, try to solve it, try to invest their money in that, try to do something for the area they live in, because they feel themselves a part of it, because they do understand that they live in their area, in this area, for example, for 2 years or for 10 years, and they will go to a hospital, they will have to use the facilities that the city provides, and they would do something with it. They would try to understand the needs. They would see these needs of the people living there, and they would work with it harder than those people who are really poor, who don't have needed resources, who don't have a say, because they have no authority in comparison with this businessman who are quite wealthy and have done, for example, a lot for a city, and they would have a say because they have this kind of authority. Secondly, they have money to invest. That's very important for us as well. Wait, please. Another thing we are going to talk about is just why it is beneficial for actors, why it is beneficial for different people or different institutions. First thing, why is it necessary for local people? First thing, local people can apply their knowledge. People can gain experience in this company. I come from a very small town, but now I study in Moscow just to gain education and experience. But I do understand that I want to get back to my city, to my town, because there is nothing there. There is no production. There is I can't use my knowledge in education. And if I have this businessman or wealthy people in general coming to my city and like establishing McKinsey, I don't know, some natural company that will product products, I would come there and I will do that because I do understand that I can apply my knowledge, I can apply my education and improve my city and make it better. Another thing, why is it better for local people? Because their problems will be solved by these authority people, as I have already stated. Another thing, why is it important for a government so that these businessmen are establishments? Oh, I guess it's quite simple because businesses are flourishing in poor areas that the state can't really fails to manage today. Another thing, government has competing companies throughout all the country. Because when you are a businessman and you can't develop your company in Moscow, for example, because you don't have needed resources, but then you come to some small town and do it there, in the long run you have a very well-quality product, and you can compete with other products that are produced, for example, in Moscow, where you need much more money for developing your product because you need a rent, you need to pay rent, you need to pay so much money to the workers that are employed there and stuff like that. Another thing, why is it better for a wealthy businessman himself? Because in the long run, he can do the same thing as a person living in a big city. Because you never touch upon a point that a wealthy businessman, in comparison with those living in big cities, maybe a little bit poorer, they can have less money and can't establish their business in bigger cities. And when you deprive them of the right to go to a smaller city, it means that they can't, their opportunity to develop their businesses is deprived. You deprive them of that, and they can't even do this business, and they do something else because of that. Thank you for your attention.
And speaking to that speech, and now I'd like to call upon Valeria to complete the case for the proposition.
The greatest example of gentrification was happening in the USA in the 20th century. Because of that, in many big cities as Boston, as New York, etc., happened, poor people needed to leave their homes, for more poor areas. Because of that, happened that the minorities of these areas, the people whose motherland is this area, like Afro-Americans, Indians, or whatever, had to leave their houses, had to live even more poor life, and have to leave their jobs, have to leave their friends at all. And we don't want this to happen in the 21st century. So, we all agreed that the group that we should care more about in these debates are the poor. Our main goal as the government is to help the poor and to solve the problem of the poor areas in big cities or wherever. But let's start with some rebuttal. They say that only several people with business will move to such areas. But why do actually people move to such areas? Because of not expensive manpower. So they are not going to pay them a lot of money because of their job given. They are going just to use their power to exploit these people and not to give them normal conditions of job. So that's the point, and that's why such people are moving to such areas. Then they say that local production will still exist, but as far as we know some economical principles, because of competition, that such business will be more competitive. And because of that local production, and because of that local shops or whatever, will not be able to exist in this society, and will be just have to cut their jobs. And where people will move to those corporations or whatever, where they will be paid less amount of money. Moreover, they will be obliged to move from their city and wherever, what my partner has already proven to you. So they said that they will give any kind of job, but That is not true actually. If you don't have enough of experience, but it's more probably that you as a local citizen, as underprivileged member of society, do not have a lot of experience. They will not give you a job. They will be just using you in underpaid jobs, and that's what we don't want to happen. So they are trying to solve the problem of big division, that there are poor and there are rich people. But we believe that these people are not going to move to these places just because of charity. They are not going to build an infrastructure for the poor people. They are firstly going to care about themselves, to build an infrastructure for themselves. They are just going to build, for example, an expensive street with private schools, with private hospitals or whatever. And such people of the local people will not be able to attend those schools, will not be able to get those services. And that is why we believe that they are not just going for charity, just to have those poor people. They are going to exploit them. And that's the problem. So we believe, as the government, that the main thing that we should think about when we are thinking of this problem is what the world would look like if we have gentrification. So let's just imagine that several or more even like rich people, rich families are moving to those cities. We believe that firstly, as the opening government has proved us, the prices will go upward, will be increasing. Yeah.
But isn't an efficient resource allocation what creates economic rise and what creates wealth after all, and why would this be different here?
Can you disagree?
So isn't efficient resource allocation what drives economic rise and wealth, and why isn't that the case here? Like if office buildings move to that area and can produce more efficiently?
They will just use the manpower and will not give the jobs to those people. So that's the case. So the prices will be going up, and the main problem that me as a poor citizen, as underprivileged citizen, as vulnerable member of society will not be able to afford those services and etc. That is why I have just established in such areas. I have just, as underprivileged member of society, have found some friends, have found, for example, a flat to live even in those underprivileged conditions. And now, because the prices are going up, because the cost of living is going up, I have to move. I have to leave all of my hopes to find something in these areas, and I have to move. Moreover, those people who will stay in those areas will create tensions, because they will not be they are not going to participate in political decision-making process. Because the politicians will be only caring about those people who are supporting them, who are giving them money. So that is why the voice of poor people will not be heard. What is happening when the voice of poor people is not heard? As my partner have already proven to you, the security becomes in very bad conditions, because they are trying to protest, they are trying to show that their voice should also be heard, that they want to participate in democracy processes, that they want to participate in exchanging of ideas, and they want their voice to be heard. So that is why we are creating inequality. Those people who have been poor become even more poor in such areas, because they get because of that underpaid jobs, they become exploited, and those parts who have to move are just living all their hopes. They cannot feel they are just established in this society, and they are at least vulnerable, and they still need to move. They still need to leave their houses, leave their families or whatever, and that hurts. That makes the people unhappy. That makes the people not feel the part of our society, because they have to move from one place to another. They have to always think about the new place, the new more cheap place for living. And we don't want the government to happen. We believe that the problem of poverty we have to solve is another problem. And with such motion, with gentrification, we even make this problem worse. And because of all those reasons, we are about to propose here